So I've titled this, Not in My Backyard, It Is Necessary. Not in my backyard. So the first time I've heard about not in my backyard, it's usually kind of a defiant challenge. Not in my backyard. The electrical power company in Oklahoma, around the Tulsa area, was beginning to lay plans and to actually construct a nuclear power plant, maybe 50, 60 miles east of Tulsa. Maybe it's not that far. They had all the conditions were premium for what they thought they needed for nuclear power plant. Lots of water, lots of running water, far away from the city, they thought. And so they began, but as they began to construct this nuclear power plant, the protests began to build and build and build over the years. It took a while until finally it was stopped. It was shut down. Not in my backyard. Even more recently, I know that there are people here who have hired lawyers and taken it to court because power companies wanted to run power lines through their backyard, through their area. Not in my backyard. Obviously, it needs to be run through somebody else's backyard, but not in my backyard. And so we're gonna keep that from happening. Probably one of the biggest thing on what's called a geopolitical on a large scale is going to be the president of Russia, Putin, who says not in my backyard, as far as he's going to do whatever he's going to do in the end of the Black Sea there, the Baltic region, Crimea, Georgia, Chechnya. NATO, you're not going to intervene in my backyard. United States, you're not going to intervene in my backyard. Not in my backyard. Biblically speaking, probably the largest backyard issue, biblically speaking, is going to be Samaria, the Samaritans. It's going to be not in my backyard. You can think about this in terms of that it goes way back. As far as the conflict goes, but actually this area, Sychar, which some scholars think, no, John, you're mistaken, because the word means drunkenness. You're mistaken. This isn't nobody would name a city drunkenness. I mean, that's not right. This is Shechem, and so Shechem's going to be a very prominent, but this whole region is very important and prominent. It's going to be a crossroads region where you can go to the Gulf, or you can go to the inner lands, and then it's going to be just off the Jordan River Valley. You can make your way up. It's going to be a major trade route. If you're going to do any kind of trade with Syria, Antioch, up the coast, if you want to do that, or do some trading down in Egypt, it's a major area. It's such a major area that this is a well-established area before Abraham ever shows up. This is going to be already a major walled city area. It's going to be a major walled city area that they think is actually destroyed numerous times. That the city is rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed because it's a place where there's a lot of water. There's a lot of water, natural waters. I think that's going to come off the surface, and it's a place where you're going to have a well. You're going to drill a deep well, but it's going to be a good well, and it's also a place where you're going to have fertile lands out there. That's why he can say at this thing, look out there, the fields are ripe. That's what this is. The fields are ripe. It's a good place to live, except you need to be able to protect your area. If you think about, maybe let's go to 100 BC. So what Jesus Christ maybe is 130. Let's go back to about 100 BC. About 100 BC is going to be a time where the Maccabee rebellion has already happened, and finally, people of Israel, the remnant of Israel, they've cast off the yoke of the Syrians. They've cast off the yoke of the Macedonians, all those generals who came after Alexander the Great. They've pushed them out of the way, And this is going to be a time where they're going to expand, but it's going to be just before the Romans come in. The Romans are going to be invited in because there's going to be always going to be an internal quarreling. So there's going to be this golden age. Actually, it's still celebrated today. It's called Hanukkah. It's called Hanukkah whenever they finally pushed them out and relit the temple candles. So it's going to be a memorable time. But about in the middle of this, about 100 BC, is when the mighty king of Israel leads his armies and they destroy Shechem. They destroy a competing temple. Not my backyard. You guys want to build a temple, go to Egypt and build a temple, go someplace else far, far away, but you're not going to build a temple 40 miles north of Jerusalem. In fact, it's going to go way back. It's going to go way back in a big way as far as the conflict goes, because there's only a short period of time when there's what's called a united kingdom. There's going to be David, Solomon, and Jeroboam. And Jeroboam is going to be like a grandson, and he's going to be, well, what people would call a spoiled brat, a double spoiled brat, that he, when it's time for him to become king, he actually travels with his entourage 40 miles north to Shechem so that the people will all crown him king. So it's a nice place. You got to have that place where you can feed and you can host. And he goes up here and he says, okay, I'm the rightful heir. You need to crown me king. You need to all recognize that. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to serve you. We did not like serving your father Solomon, and you are much worse. And so there's a major rift. There's a major split. And so over the years, this is bad. So what we read in Isaiah, when you read in Isaiah, he's going to be talking about, he's going to call them Ephraim or Manasseh, the proud drunkards. And so to be the proud drunkards in the garland, you got to have wealth and prosperity. You got to have fields. You have to have the ability to do all this. And so they do. The north is much wealthier than the south. But they're going to be invaded by the Assyrians because this is a place where you invade. It's written as a first ripe summer fig. Anybody who comes by is going to pick it and eat it. That's how it's talked about. You're going to be picked and eaten. But Jerusalem is not going to be picked and eaten because Jerusalem is going to make a covenant with Sheol, a covenant with death. Jerusalem's going to make an agreement with death. Jerusalem's going to tell Assyria, okay, we will pay you money. Do not invade our town, Jerusalem. We will pay you money. And so stay away. Please stay away. Here's more money. You need more. Here's more. Until they get all that worked out. And so Isaiah says, you guys have made a covenant with death, but it's not going to stand. You've made a covenant with Sheol, the underworld, but it's not going to stand. And everything that you do, all that you do, you proud drunkards of Ephraim is going to be Joseph's sons. He's going to have two sons when he's in Egypt, Ephraim and Manasseh. When the land is conquered by Joshua, he's an Ephraimite. It's really important to know that he's an Ephraimite, that this is how it's all going to play out, but it's going to just wind down disastrous. It's the history of people. It's the history of who we are. So let's fast forward. Let's fast forward and go all the way to this, and let's go visit the woman of Samaria. She's the woman of Samaria. You've had 5 husbands, so it can be an individual. But in a way, I've mentioned this a few times. I don't know if anybody's tired of it. You're in a little bit of kabuki theater. You're in a little bit of Noah theater. It's like things I'm seeing and things that I'm hearing, they're not exactly right. What is he talking about? John's going to come up with some of this throughout his presentation. John is going to be talking about it, but John is trying to move people towards something, because at the very beginning, John says Jesus Christ is the Logos. Logos is going to be rationality, ratio. Logos is going to be very mathematical. Logos is going to be the accounting. John is trying to get to the accounting, and he's going to use some very strange language to try to move us to that accounting. In fact, he's going to introduce people and characters that are not introduced by any other writer. It's like, John, you've grown old, and you've grown forgetful, and you've been living up in Ephesus for a long time, and you don't remember how it is. But John's kind of already covered that, because he's already talked about Nicodemus and the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of God that comes and goes, and you don't know where it's coming from and you don't know where it's going. That the Spirit of the Lord is teaching John how to write this final wrap-up presentation. We know from the Exodus, it's the road out of Egypt. He's talking about now the road into heaven. This is the same road, a different road. What's going on? Well, it's going to be language that he's going to work with, and stories he's going to be working with. And he's going to work with this woman at the well in Sychar. Well, there is no such place. There's no evidence of such a place. Well, that's the way we like to talk about it. Scholars like to talk about it. Today it's going to be called Nablus. Present-day Nablus. That's going to be the head of the Palestinian organization in Nablus. And if you really want to look at, not in my backyard, look at Israel today. Look at the problems that they have in Nablus. Look at the conflict that's in Nablus and in Jerusalem. It's always there. It's always ongoing. And it's definitely not in my backyard. But you know what? There's nothing you can do about it, really. The whole world is watching. The whole world watches and listens for any kind of a hiccup or speed bump or changes. Everybody knows this. What can you do? Jesus Christ is saying, okay, we're going to move you off of this well. Okay, we're going to move you off of this well. And if you knew the gift of God before you, you would ask him. You would ask him, and I would give you living water. I would give you water that would rise up and bubble up. You go, well, what is that all about? That is awful strange talk. It is strange talk. It's very different talk, and it's very much the presentation of the gospel. It's very much the presentation of life. And if you want to push this living water a little bit towards drunkenness, well, you're going to find that in what we call the Feast of Pentecost, where you have all these people that are in the upper room and they're praying to the Lord God, and all of a sudden I hear drunkenness. I hear people chattering, and I hear people saying stuff, and they are babbling. They are not making sense. And then you're going to have Peter. His name's not Peter. His name's Simon, but he's been renamed Peter. And he's going to say, no. They're not drunk. This is the Spirit of God, and this is the testimony, and this is all about Jesus Christ, whom you crucified, and we know to be raised. It's all a different world. The gospel presentation is the work of God for people, for the woman of Samaria, for us today, for all who are under the yoke of all kinds of different oppressions. And people are good, very good at doing that. All of it's the work of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.